we are talking about opportunity. I like to say ideas are everywhere we look. And today we're going to talk about those ideas, and you might be in the audience here. And if you want to share some of these ideas, we want you on stage today.
But this week we're looking at where are the opportunities. It's the number one question I get asked all the time is, okay, Michael, where are the opportunities? Like, where should I go along and invest? Or what businesses should I start? And I want to blow that right open and really explore what that means. Like, where are these opportunities? And I think it's going to be a great conversation for the next hour and on the complete entrepreneur. So it's one of the great things about this hour is on the complete entrepreneur, we're going to look at not just the business aspects of what it means to be an entrepreneur, but we take a look at the life experience of an entrepreneur. What does it mean to lead that life of an entrepreneur? But just before we do, Colin, what's going on with Startup Club?
Oh my gosh, Startup Club, we are almost 820,000 members. Tomorrow, by the way, we have billionaire Bhavin Turkai joining us at 2 o'clock Eastern. He has started multiple unicorns, and this is going to be an interesting session because we're actually going to figure out what does it take to really start and scale and exit a unicorn. And he and his brother have done it multiple times. You probably know Bhavin from Radix, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do know him, and he's an incredible guy that is really worth listening to. I'll tell you what, it's such an incredible experience and everything. But so it's lots going on with Startup Club then.
Oh my gosh, it's going crazy, and we just launched a podcast for the show that we do on Fridays. You can now check out the Serial Entrepreneur Club. We hit our 50th episode. We have a website now, www.startup.club, and you can sign up to the mailing list because when you hear about these type of speakers that are coming on tomorrow, they are special. These people are coming and they are going to share their wisdom and help us figure out what it takes to make a startup succeed. And it's going to be phenomenal. Look, I'm looking forward to today. Today, ideas are everywhere. And I see ideas when I go through life, and everybody sees ideas. And you're in the audience today. You're thinking about, you know what? I see some opportunities. Do I turn them into businesses? What makes an idea work? Michael, tell us a little bit more about today's topic.
Yeah, it's looking at ideas, but also more than ideas of where are there the opportunities. Like to me, ideas are great, opportunities are even better, and then executing those opportunities is just awesome, positively executing. And so quite often it's like a big funnel of things going around in an entrepreneur's head and ideas and that sort of stuff. But let me just tell you a story. I must admit, when I go to the US, prior to pre-COVID anyway, I'd go to the US all the time. And I just want to say, for those people that are in the US, this is the impact it has on a lowly Australian. I step off the plane and I feel like I'm surrounded by gold on the ground everywhere. There is so many opportunities. I go to a conference and my biggest problem is trying to work out which opportunity to pursue and which ones to not pursue. That's my biggest problem. There's so many opportunities in the US. Like when you consider like Greater LA, the population of Greater LA is basically the population of the entirety of Australia, and you just got population working for you just there. But more than that, it's a mindset. In the US, I find there is more let's just try it. And I think sometimes when you look at different opportunities and things like that, it's a matter of just throwing them out at the wall and just seeing what sticks. And I find that's often the case, particularly in cutting edge areas or things like that. But I'm not sure about yourself, but I want to jump down to Michelle because Michelle, I need to apologize for last week. She was on the show as a moderator, and I didn't get any feedback from yourself, Michelle. So today I'd love to hear from you, Michelle, of what's your thoughts on where are the opportunities?
Hey, thanks, Michael, so much. Yeah, I can't, Michael. The questions I always am struggling with is which opportunity do I jump at? Because I personally have a tendency to overcommit. which I actually think can be very detrimental because then you're not necessarily, putting the effort into the opportunity. I think one of the things we have to really consider is where can we really move forward with that idea or opportunity that's presented, and do we have times and resources for it, because it could be the best idea ever, but it's just not the right time. So I'm curious, Colin and Jeff, I know you get a lot of opportunities presented to you. What do you do to figure out where to put your time? Because if you get too divided, it's really could be quite bad and you miss out on everything. Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, I'd love to hear from you. As Michelle just said, there is that there's so many opportunities. So, how do you begin to shake things down?
I think great points that Michelle made, and I think a lot of it has to do, Michael, with first knowing what is your objective. Are you talking about an opportunity for a side hustle or something that you want to do while you're doing other things? Are you talking for an opportunity to invest in a new business? Are you talking about an opportunity to start a new business yourself from the ground up? Because those different objectives might steer you, frankly, in different directions, right? If you've got funds available, maybe you've got some money yourself from a previous success and friends and family, and you're looking to really start something and you're looking for what areas might you want to start it in, that would be a different approach than if you're looking for a side hustle that might eventually become your full-time job, so to speak. There are opportunities everywhere. And it's really about, keeping your eyes open, but also more importantly, knowing what it is. What is your objective? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to start a new business, a new career? Are you trying to supplement your current situation, et cetera? That's going to affect where you look for opportunities, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And great advice there, Jeff, as always. I think that the issue also is how do we define what is an opportunity? What is actually an opportunity versus what's just an idea? Like I've got this great idea, but is it really an opportunity? Does it have the capabilities of becoming that side hustle or that business or that some transformational activity for your life? Like that's the thing is what really is an opportunity. Now, if you're in the audience right now and you think this conversation is beginning to really light my fire as such, um, then please stick up your hand. If you have some questions or something like that, or you say, these are things that I do for weeding out opportunities, which ones to pursue, then please put up your hand. We'd love to hear from you up on stage. Rather than the four of us, we'd love to hear from the 100 of us. That's for sure. Because it's one of the reasons why I must admit I do this is to hear from people like yourself. So put up your hand. We'd love to invite you to the stage. But in the meantime, so what is an opportunity? So, Colin, I want to come back to you. How do you define the difference between a great idea, even, and an opportunity? Is there some sort of like magic that you do in that process? Like, where do you put your resources and where do you put your time to take that to determine whether an opportunity is something you should pursue or not?
See, no one's ever asked me that question. What's the difference between an idea and an opportunity? And the answer, I think, is that an idea is an idea. An opportunity is something that you vetted. And I look back at history and my own companies and whatnot, how we came up with different ideas are everywhere. And they come from your existing job. They come when you can't get something to work and you can solve an existing problem. They're everywhere. And if you can solve these problems, if you can identify these opportunity, I shouldn't use that word yet, but if you can identify what's going on here, you can figure out there is an opportunity here. And an opportunity is simply an idea that's been vetted, that you think that this has got an opportunity. There's something here. I had a conversation, gentlemen. He's coming on to Clubhouse, by the way. I've convinced him to come on. He's 24 years old. He just graduated from college a year ago. He's working for a $2 billion company in the real estate sector, and he's talking about tokenizing real estate. Now, Michael, you may know one of my businesses is a vacation rental business, so I'm quite intrigued by this concept or this idea. Is there an opportunity for me to figure out how to tokenize real estate in the South Florida market and actually make money from that, but also in the process democratize ownership of properties so you don't necessarily need to have You don't necessarily need to buy a tenth of a real estate business or own a timeshare. You can actually own a coin that represents a real estate portfolio. Does that exist? Does that opportunity exist? And that's something that I'm bouncing around right now. I got him coming on the show in April, talk about the concept of tokenizing real estate. Are NFTs an opportunity? Well, quite frankly, I've been pretty negative on NFTs, and I'm going to continue to be negative. Is Bitcoin an opportunity? Quite frankly, I'm pretty big on Bitcoin, and I buy a lot of Bitcoin. I own 6 of them right now, and I'm going to continue to believe that's a store of value. So I am not totally anti-crypto, anti-whatever, but I'm also very careful to think about what are those opportunities. And we have to sometimes look at what's going to take and what's not going to take. And so I'm going to lean on Jeffrey Moore here. I'm going to lean on crossing the chasm. I believe NFTs are in a chasm. I believe that they may never get out of a chasm, but I've also been pretty negative with virtual reality, VR. Augmented reality, I think, has got more future than virtual reality. And the fact of the matter is, you see a company like Magic Leap in Fort Lauderdale, which just totally seems to be imploding, in my opinion. Don't see any evidence there's any life in that company, yet they've received billions of dollars. There was an opportunity. So I often look at what are the paradigm shifts? What are the technological changes that are occurring in our society? And is there opportunity that exists within those changes? And we have to pick and choose which ones we want to get on. Do we want to get on self-driving cars? Do we want to get on the NFT bandwagon? Which, by the way, when we've done shows like this before, NFT was the number one thing that came out over and over again. If you're in the audience and you have an opinion and you have an opportunity or an idea, this is it. This is going to be an open conversation, Michael. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, the thing I try to look at is quite often with ideas and then separating ideas from opportunities is I began to put my business hat on. Like you said, you end up vetting them and you think, okay, augmented reality versus virtual reality and NFTs, crypto, all these sort of things you mentioned, which I'd like to dig more into some of these in a minute. One of the things I find is a really big opportunity is quite often the bridge between industries, I call it. And what I mean by that is that by getting a diversity of inputs into your thinking, like I do a lot of reading on latest physics, from fusion to the new space telescope to you name it. So I do lots of reading in physics, in chemistry. I do lots of reading in economics.
I love the web.
In
You love the Webb Space Telescope. Isn't that amazing?
oh,
It's not an
it's
opportunity. It's
fabulous.
truly amazing.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. So I do lots and lots of reading, and I do it in a very formal sense. And all the latest is going on in business, and also in a diversity of industries. And I find that there's quite often a gap, like something in one industry will spark off thoughts in another industry for me, and I go, why aren't they using this thing from real estate that they've been doing for so long in the cinema industry or something, or whatever it is? And I scratch my head and I sort of think, there's an opportunity, and that's actually a pretty big one. And I then think, is this something I want to pursue or not? And the number one thing I look for in an opportunity is it scalable. That's the thing I look for. And probably like yourself, and I'm going to come back to scaling as well, like yourself, Colin, Jeff, and Michelle, is that one of the things I also like to do is I like to go along, and I've this sort of saying is, if you want to understand something, become it. And I remember when the internet first was commercialized back in the early 90s, and I looked at this and I thought, gee, this looks like an interesting opportunity. I need to understand this. I was in the middle of my MBA at the time, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to found an ISP. So I did that. I founded an ISP. Why? Because I wanted to understand the internet, but understand it at a real grassroots level of okay, how does this all work? And that experience from way back then is now translate me 30 years later, 30 something years later. And I now have a technical understanding and a business understanding of a lot of what the internet is and how it functions at the really low level from my experiences running an ISP back in the early 90s. Yeah, it's the same thing with virtual reality. I was one of the early adopters of the Oculus Rift. And I've been waiting for virtual reality to come out. So one of the first things I did was I bought myself an Oculus Rift, and I began to play with it. I played some of the games and things like that they had on it, and just to try to experience what works, what doesn't work. I had the joyous experience of motion sickness with the Oculus Rift with one particular game, and I must admit that is a most horrendous experience. But it was just one game, and I found out why that game had that. I had that reaction to it. I then began to program it because I wanted to see how difficult is the tools there. And I came to the conclusion it wasn't there yet, but it's really close. And then Magic Leap, as you mentioned, Colin, which is really augmented reality. They've been through serious amounts of money down there in Fort Lauderdale. And they just done an announcement just recently. And I'm thinking, yeah, but have they really turned the opportunity into something commercial, which is interesting. So
So as a startup, Michael, as a startup, as an investor, I'm thinking, I love that idea. I love that technology shift. Do I go for it or do I not go for it? Do I believe in self-driving at Tesla or not? Do I believe in augmented reality or not? I think everyone who's in this room probably has these thoughts. Like, do NFTs, are they really something or not? Are we just old because we think NFTs are not really that it? Do we believe Bitcoin's something? How can it actually function as a currency? All these things go through your mind. And if you're in the audience, come on, this is going to be really fun. Come on up.
Yeah, it's an interesting question you ask about those sort of things. I think there's quite often with any sort of major opportunity like the one you just outlined there, it is I think it's a timing issue quite often. And if you're too early in the cycle, then you're going to get your hands burnt. If you're too late, you've missed it. So it's like, how do you time this? Quite often with the opportunity, like it is, for instance, back, I don't know, when Bitcoin was first around and you're buying it for 5 cents or something like that. And everyone said, what the heck are you doing? And the tools to actually buy a Bitcoin was so clunky. It was just crazy. And everyone would be laughing at you and all that sort of
Have
stuff.
you tried to buy an NFT, Michael? I'm trying to buy my first NFT. I swear to God, it's the most
Yeah,
complicated thing.
it's the same sort of thing. Yeah, I must admit, NFTs I think are absolutely fabulous for the artist. I'm trying to understand what the value ultimately is for, say, the investors, and whether it's just a great big Ponzi scheme and you end up selling at some point because some other mug wants to pay more than you
Yeah.
pay, or is there something else underpinning this artistic venture? For the artists, I think it's great because it allows them to get their art into the marketplace and actually generate some revenue from this and everything. But NFTs, I think, are the first wave, what's our next wave of multiple waves of, as you said, Colin, tokenization. And it's tokenization, I think, of intellectual property, it's tokenization of assets, where they come from. But ultimately, I'm a firm believer that content, whatever that content is, whether it's music, whether it's a video, whether it is images, whether it's the written word, ultimately content is king because that's what people want. The issue is how to best get the value from that content.
All right, Michael,
Yeah.
I know you're going to open it up to the audience, but I think we've discovered the first opportunity here. How to make it easy to buy an NFT. It was very complicated for me to buy startupclub.eth. Very complicated. Just making it easy, connecting people from one world to another. I think that's a huge opportunity.
Oh, undoubtedly. Even I look at the domain industry that I'm in, trying to manage a domain portfolio is excruciating for many people. Yeah, and it's a challenge. And or how do you solve the problem of not just managing one website, but if you want to manage 1,000 websites? Like, how do you do that and put in appropriate amounts of sort of management time to be able to extract the value for each one of those? There's big challenges out there. But I want to jump across to Rich. I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on where are the opportunities. So, Rich, welcome to the Complete Entrepreneur.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jeffrey and Colin and Michelle. I just wanted to comment that I think you were trying to make a distinction between idea and opportunity. And personally, I think that those are co-joined. And what I mean by that is that I think the idea is first, right? And that sort of leads you to understand you've got a gut feel that there's something there. And the opportunity really is the vetting of that idea. And then be able to look at that and say, with a structured approach, that this idea has merit under these structural conditions and methodologies that confirm for me that there is an opportunity there. And
Yeah,
there's and there
absolutely, Rich. Sorry, I completely agree with you. Sorry, go for it.
yeah, I just wanted to make a final comment here that under that structured approach, there's a lot of secondary market research that needs to be completed by the founder or potential founder and or the team. Then there's primary research that needs to be conducted. And then there needs to be an understanding of the competitive industry structure and the competitors' landscape and the growth trends and the pricing models that are out there and the typical ASPs for particular products or services and how that is structured and the types of margins that are derived from that. And and then there's a whole competitive analysis that needs to be done and understanding where can you plant your flag? Can you take the high ground? Is there an opportunity there? Or are you stuck in the middle and you never want to be there? All those things need to be considered. And so I think you start with the idea and you go to the opportunity.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. The challenge I find quite often is with all of the ideas and then all of the opportunities is determining which one to then pursue because we have limited resources and limited time. That's one question. The other question I have for you, Rich, is what do you do with a situation like Steve Jobs, where he proclaimed at one stage that the marketplace doesn't know what it wants because I haven't told them yet. Yeah, and so I wonder how a lot of opportunities are there, but they're almost nascent. That the market doesn't even know that it needs to have an Apple Watch. It doesn't even know that it needs to have an iPod or something like that. And I wonder like whether in the vetting process we eliminate some of these incredible ideas and things like that from becoming even the opportunities because we say, it's who's going to want that? Who's going to want an Apple Watch? Or who's going to want this? Or whatever. I sometimes wonder that question, Rich. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think the when you take a look at opportunities and if you or ideas, if you have 6 or 7 ideas at the top of the funnel, and so to speak, and you put down your criteria that you have as an entrepreneur, and one of those is, and I forget who mentioned it. I don't know if it was Michael or Jeff. They look for scalable ideas, right? A scale is huge. So that should be a criteria that should be, looked at under the lens of each of these ideas and said, can you scale it? And then there's other criteria that you as the entrepreneur should be using just to judge whether or not those potential ideas make it to the next stage of the investigation. The Apple Watch and your analogy there is an interesting one because right around that same time, I remember, before Apple Watch was even brought out, I remember reading an article by a watch company, and I love watches, and it said that they expected their business to shrink because the presence of phones and people just aren't wearing watches anymore. The multi-purposeness of a and capability of the Apple Watch is not a watch. It's not a watch at all. It's just it happens to be in the form of a watch. So I think that's the difference. If that makes
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd agree with you on that. I even look at my own Apple Watch, and why did I buy it? I bought it because I could have 4 time zones on it. That's the sole reason why. Everything else was like a bonus, but I could have 4 time zones always on my wrist because I work in international business all the time. But it's an interesting one, like looking at the whole issue of scaling. Is this idea scalable? The converse of that, is it niche but high value, is the other one of that. So is it scalable as an opportunity? Can I go along and enter a really big market? And why is that great for an entrepreneur? Because quite often great big markets disguise any failings along the way, because you're going to be doing a lot of learnings along the way. So if you go to a tiny market, like if you're selling a new type of executive jet, it's a pretty small market compared to if you're selling a new game, like or something. It's very different scenarios there. So quite often, look at the size of the market is one of the criteria I sort of judge whether this opportunity is something worth pursuing or not.
But I
I
guess,
just want to jump across now.
Michael,
Sorry, to Jeff. Yeah,
just a comment on that. I still go back to, not to be the naysayer in the room, but I still go back to, it all depends on what your objective is, right? If your objective is to create a lifestyle business where you can work from a beach in Bali and earn X dollars a year doing so, then scalability may not be relevant when you're looking for the opportunity. So I really think one of the mistakes entrepreneurs often make is, and I've been guilty of it myself, is going after the shiny object. And you might pursue something because it looks like that big, scalable, great opportunity, but it may not actually be a fit for what your personal goals and objectives are. So I really think before seeking opportunities, you need to look within and really understand what is the goal, what is it the goal. Now, the goal might be to build a unicorn, in which case scalability and all these other things are going to come into place. But if the goal is different than that, then the opportunities are going to look different too.
Jeff, I'm glad you brought that issue up because I completely agree with you on it. When I found one of my businesses, the number one thing I looked at was what did I want in my life prior, and use that as one of the criteria for the business. So one of the things I wanted to do was work from home. Why? I wanted to be there when my kids came home from school. I'm sure I can work later on at night when they're in bed and everything like that. So I worked pretty hard. But I began to put criteria around what did I want in my life. And I think that's something that you put your finger on, Jeff, which is entrepreneurs, they quite often will chase bigger is always better versus what do they actually really want. And is this opportunity going to bring them what they actually want out of their life versus, oh, I just need to go along and grow until I explode? Yeah. And that's not necessarily the answer. But I want to jump across to yourself, Colin, because you've grown a lot of businesses along the way. And is it always a grow until you explode? Or is Jeff putting his finger on something here of the entrepreneur needs to really define what they want out of their life and out of this opportunity and put that as part of the vetting mix as such?
99% of businesses in the United States are small businesses. 99% of businesses do not scale. Here's the opportunity. If you can come up with an idea that can scale, you can create a much larger company. And what do I mean by scalability? Scalability is all about the ability to drive growth without expensive implementations, etc. Like for instance, let me give you an example. My wife and I own a school. The school has a capacity of 108 people. It's a $2 million facility. And with that facility, we can get 108 people in that school. If we want to expand to another school, it would cost us another $2 million, probably a lot more than that. That's not scalable. Take an idea like .club. We sold 100 domain names for $10 a name. We sold 1,000, we sold 10,000, we sold 100,000, we sold 1,000,000, we sold it to GoDaddy for a huge multiple. That's scalable. And I'll say this, I will say that it takes just as much effort. And actually, I would say less. It takes less effort to run a larger business or a business that can scale. Than a small business, you're doing a lot of hands-on work. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there is an argument. There is a place for every small business in America and every small business around the world. I'll be quite frank. I do totally agree. You want to build a lifestyle? That's it. And by the way, they're a lot more defensible, local, and whatnot. But when you start getting into these global companies, they tend to be a little bit more competitive. But I'll tell you this, it takes as much effort to run as a large company you know, or a small company or a small business, it takes the same amount of effort. And if you can come up with, if you're sitting there in the room today and you say, you know what, I'm going to come up with an idea, and here's my idea, and my idea is scalable and defensible, and you can do that, and you can deliver it, and you can build a greater wealth, then I think go for it. I think that's my message. I know, Jeff, you're in the camp of, we're having a debate here. You're in the camp of keep it small. I'm in the camp of it takes the same amount of energy to keep it small as it does to go
I'm
big.
definitely not in the camp at all of keep it small, Colin. I'm in the camp of knowing what your objective is first so that you do keep it small if that's what you're looking for, or you do look for that big scalable opportunity if that's what you're looking for, but not just grab something because it seems like an opportunity, because it may or may not fit your family, your lifestyle, your goals, your objectives, etc. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying keep it small at all.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump across to Patricia in a second, but just beforehand, Jeff, I think that the interesting thing with it's not keep it small, and it's not like this is keep on growing and scale and scale and scale. It's not those two things. I think the key thing you said is what is your objective? What is your objective as an entrepreneur? What are you trying to achieve for your life? It is so true. But also along the way of life, you may change your objective. That's okay. I would highly recommend you're not chopping and change every day, but it's like your objective may change. You may discover, you may put your toe in the water and go, oh, I'm not sure whether I want to run my own business, for instance, and discover you completely love it and that the business is exploding around you. And you thought, oh my goodness, I never thought it'd be like this. And you may decide to change your objective in that process. Or you may decide to constrain your business. Why? Because you want to have some different things out of life. So I think you both are saying some really good wisdom there. But just before we should pursue that a bit more, I'd love to get Patricia. I'd love to hear from you. And welcome to Clubhouse. You got your party popper out there. So it's great to have you here. So if you welcome to the stage of the Complete Entrepreneur.
Thank you. Hi. Every thought you've shared has been fantastic, and I've much enjoyed listening to you. Just wanted to chime in with a personal example and on the topic of timing. So, timing from the perspective of the entrepreneur is one thing, but timing from the perspective of market readiness is another. And I'll give you an example that may not make much sense at first, but so I'm a lawyer. I've been in the legal business for over 20 years. I've negotiated thousands of contracts in that time, and I came up with a way to automate maybe half of the negotiations. And I've suggested that to some businesses and people around me, and the market was not ready for it. They did not see the advantage of investing time into an idea like that, and it didn't develop into a business for me. So not at that time. So all this to say that you may have a great idea, but if the market is too conservative or is not ready for the kind of change that you want to bring, the kind of solution you want to bring to an existing problem, your idea may not materialize. It's a balancing act of wanting to put something forward, but making sure it's the right timing for yourself and for the market you're targeting.
I completely agree with you there, Patricia. You really put your finger on one of the issues or one of the things you need to use to vet those ideas out. I had a similar experience where I had a fabulous idea back in back 97, an online advertising sort of system, and it was probably 10 years ahead of its time. I didn't realize at that point in time it was so far ahead. And with the result, it didn't resonate with the market. So that's the thing you got to put into the mix with these vetting of the ideas is the timing, but also the market preparedness to receive your product or service you're talking about. Really good point there. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to jump down here to Swizz. It's great to have you here on the Complete Entrepreneur and to hear from your thoughts on this topic of where are the opportunities.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and thanks for having us up here. So, just a bit of background. I moved from banking and I went into the telco sector, and I think one of the things that we learned there is different business models and how those can be expanded amongst each other. So, just listening to Michael and Jeffrey, I think it's a pyramid of thinking when it comes to opportunities. And the first one we usually start with is objective, right? So the objective of entrepreneur, it's pretty different if you want to exit after 5 years, or is this like a passion company that you're trying to build and you're trying to be the CEO forever, right? And underneath those, I'd probably say is timing, infrastructure, and cost of sale. Now, I think something we started to learn now with Facebook's move to the metaverse is there is a psychology to this, right? And for those of us who are on the lower end, if we don't have the resources to prime the market, the timing could really be 10 years. You don't have enough cash to burn for the next 10 years. So you can see something is coming. It's a great idea, but it's just not ready for it. Now, what Facebook is probably doing is the same. I think last year they put about $10 billion into it, and the strategy now is they're going to pour a lot more money into it. So there's an idea they have, whether we like it or not, they will force the metaverse to work. Right now, I think it's probably just there's too many smaller ones, but money will probably win this one. And then you get infrastructure. So if I'm looking at the partnerships which have probably formed 5, 10 years, I'll use Facebook as another example again. Is they used to have the next million customers. You move away from the USA to Europe, and let's say you go to Africa, so it's a geographical problem, right? If you look at who's got access to internet, who's got 4G, etc., it wasn't big enough of a market for them. So what they do, they speak to your Vodafones, your Orange, your Deutsches, and say, how about you guys put the infrastructure there so people can access Facebook? So you get some weird partnerships that go along. Now they've got enough money to burn until the users come online. And you're speaking about scaling, and yeah, there's a cost to scale. Now it's two ways, right? And your objective is, are you trying to flip this and exit, or are you trying to stay, right? And if you get too big too quickly, you could find the company that you started is something you're not really a part of or not significantly in the decision making. And I think another theme you touched on is like a developing entrepreneur. Some people don't have a lot of resources when they get into it, and maybe they want to flip their first two ideas. But you do get to a point where you're saying, you know what, I'm willing to put half of what I've got to develop something that doesn't exist. And for that, I'll stay in for the long run. Now, in terms of the opportunities, are you a pioneer who's starting something different and it's going to be a lot harder? Or you could just look at the business models. So, if I had to throw one up, I'd say, for example, you just look at Airbnb, etc. If I said the divorce rate is like 52%, give or take. So people are getting married like pretty much every weekend. Is there an app where you could just go on and say, I'm looking for a photographer, I'm looking for a venue, I'm looking for a cake maker, etc. So those type of models, tried and tested, they already work, very scalable. But is that something that somebody wants to do for the rest of their life? That's an objective, right? So I think there's different frameworks that we're coming up with as we go along, but these things are all interlinked.
You brought out some fabulous points there, and there's one I want her drilling a little bit more into, is that or encourage entrepreneurs to get to change their focus in many respects from even national to international. And I even look at my own business there, and you mentioned Facebook and how they opened up international markets and all that sort of stuff, which is really quite clever in some of the things they're obviously doing there. But my own business is one of the things I said was I need to be international. Through the auspices of the internet, I can have as much of a presence online as a Coca-Cola. And that was my mentality. Yeah, as I can be really big in the international world in my market and to have that international mindset. With a result, probably 99% of our clients are international. And it's a really interesting thing. But I want to come back a little bit to looking at what are some of the opportunities. Like we've mentioned crypto and NFT and VR and augmented reality. How about 3D printing? Colin or Michelle, have you looked into 3D printing? Is that really an opportunity or is it just a pipe dream? Everyone's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, 3D printing. I'll believe it when I really see it.
Well, I can tell you, my daughter's into it. She's really into it. She worked at a 3D printing factory for a year. She's got a 3D printer. She's printing stuff nonstop. I do think that take applications like jewelry, personalized jewelry, personalization. Look, there's opportunities there. There's definitely opportunities. There are opportunities everywhere. I think 3D printing is one of them, and it's something that we have. I think it's all about meeting demand, solving a need, solving a problem. And 3D printing does that in multiple areas. You can do models, you can really do a lot with 3D printing. So I'm starting to see that that's one of those technologies that could really make a difference and be an opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Michael, I know you're a big science fiction fan, but it makes me think of Star Trek. I think it is very futuristic and there are applications. People are building houses. At the most basic level right now, you can quickly build a prototype. So I also see that there is a huge future. Obviously, there needs to be probably still a lot of evolution there, but it is viable. And I actually think it's very environmentally friendly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting mentioned that my interest in science fiction. Yes, I love science fiction. I've written a science fiction book. But one of the reasons why I love science fiction is quite often they're the prophets of today. They're the ones that go along and push the thinking around technologies and things like that way to the future. And when you read the books or watch the movies or anything like that, you think, you know what? I think we can do that right now. Like you look at the 1960s Captain Kirk communicator compared to a phone nowadays. The phone is so much more capable compared to his communicator. But if you look at the form factor and everything, it's about the same. Yeah, it's really interesting things of the juxtaposition between science fiction and business. And a lot of there's some great ideas. If you're ever thinking, oh, gee, I just don't see any ideas, I would encourage you, go along and read some science fiction or fantasy books or something like that, and read them from the perspective of business opportunities. And you'll suddenly go, oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't think of this, didn't think of that. But anyway, so yeah,
I
so
really want a
3D
lightsaber,
printing.
Michael. Like a lightsaber. Can you
Yeah,
get me
I
one of
want a
those?
lightsaber too. Although I always wonder, you turn it on and you actually, your friend taps you on the shoulder, you turn around, you slice them in half or something like that. Like, it's not too good there. But 3D printing, I love 3D printing, I must admit. I've been really watching this market. And the thing I'm trying to work out is where is the value in the 3D printing? I don't think the value in 3D printing is actually the device. I don't think the value is in even in the printing of the things that you're 3D printing. I think the value is in the content and the design or the functionality of the thing that is being printed. And this is where I come back to is that one of the things about 3D printing I find is you're scaling manufacturing, unique manufacturing. And if you can go and have a design, like you mentioned jewelry a few minutes ago, Colin, if you can scale a design and you can have lots of people download a particular file and they can then print it on their 3D printer, then the value is in the design. It's not in the actual piece of material being made, which is really interesting because it means that the designers of this world are about to come into their own. Where before, to actually get your jewelry out there, everything was incredibly hard. We're using jewelry as an example, incredibly hard and to break into markets and all that sort of stuff. Suddenly, it's going to be blown wide open. The issue is what's the timing, as Patricia said before. But so 3D printing, I was going to tackle a couple of others here. Crypto. Is crypto really the end of the financial system? Or is crypto something just, yeah, it's been great, it's been like a casino and it's going to die out? Or is crypto is going to just take everything to the next level? Is that a big opportunity? Or are we just going to the casino? That's the question. So, Colin, is it a casino, crypto?
Okay, I own 6 Bitcoin. I admit that. I think there's a real opportunity. I think it's actually, I'll tell you why I own 6 Bitcoin. I own 6 Bitcoin because it's an insurance policy. What happens if, look what happened to the ruble. I'm not saying that the US is going to do anything crazy that's going to crash their currency, but look what happened to the ruble. So, is there an opportunity to store some of your money as an insurance policy in Bitcoin? I think so. Is there an opportunity in Ethereum where they have utility? I think so. I actually bought into Selenium as well because I think the gas fees are too high on Ethereum. And because of that, there's opportunity that exists for smaller transactions that you need to trade. Will there be more of that kind of crypto? Yes, there will be. Will the blockchain, is like I talked about earlier, tokenizing real estate? I think that's an opportunity. There is huge opportunity there, but there's also huge risk. We talk about NFTs, these cartoons, these that sell for $500,000 or $250,000 of an ape. I'm going to be a broken record when I talk about this, but I don't get it. And I get Bitcoin. I get a store of value. If you don't get Bitcoin, you don't understand what the U.S. currency is. It's piles of paper with a promise behind it. Bitcoin is a deflationary instrument it's a deflationary instrument that is on the internet that you can transfer money or value to easier than gold. And that's what the Russians are doing. And that's what the people there want to do because they just think, hey, I can just transfer that. So I see the value in that. I see the value in that thing. I think there's environmental issues. I think Bitcoin ultimately can solve those problems, but I'm not going to go there right now. But for the most part, that's what we're dealing with. And the NFTs, no, don't get me started.
Yeah, like I must admit, when the whole crypto wave hit, one of the first things I did was I dove into the market, looking at like where the risks and everything. I found that there was a huge amount of risk, say, in the fact that the exchanges may get hacked. So I thought, okay, I need an air gap device, so something I can plug into a USB port. Okay. Next thing I did was I went out and bought some. I bought XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, things like that, because I just wanted to know what it was like. Had someone solved the difficulties and understanding how this all worked. I then transferred it all into my air gap device. And to be quite blunt with you, I just forgot all. 18 months later, I thought, oh, that's right, I've got some of these things. I looked at the prices, thought, holy crap, I just made 500%. And I said, yeah, I'm out. I was quite happy to take my cash, yeah.
I did something similar. Just for fun, I put some money, some Bitcoin on a USB drive. And not a lot, about at the time it was about a couple $100. Now it's probably worth like 1,000 or 2,000. And it's around my house and I can't find it. I'm serious. This is what happens.
Yeah, that's the reality of crypto, isn't it? But yeah, some interesting opportunities there. I want to jump down here to Rodney. Where are the opportunities? Where are the opportunities for you? What are your thoughts on this topic? It's great to hear from you, and welcome to the stage of the Complete Entrepreneur.
Thanks for the opportunity. I believe opportunities are based on ideas, turning into opportunities based on the environment. Like I'll take the example of crypto, like you were saying just before I hopped on. In the US, they have made it, and the Western world, I would say, they have made it fairly easy for people to purchase crypto. But back in Africa, where I'm from, it's still pretty difficult. If you're in Africa and you have the idea of having a centralized, let's say like an exchange or something, where you can actually get crypto, it's brilliant in that environment. But when you move over to the US, it's something else completely. Now you have to do something special for your idea to above the others. In order for you, I'll take another example. Back in Africa, I started a content writing company, and it was going on well and everything because it was one of the only content writing companies which actually provide written content for social media and all that. But when I moved to the US, I noticed there are like thousands of these companies. So my idea wasn't really an opportunity because I changed my environment. So I think the environment has a very big role to play in making your idea an opportunity. Then talking about where are the opportunities now, I would say blockchain technology is one of the hottest markets right now because there are a lot of opportunities. There's tokens, there's NFTs and everything, but I think the plumbing, just using the blockchain, just the fact you can have peer-to-peer transactions, just the fact you can avoid the middleman, I think there are many opportunities. You just need to look for a way to exploit those opportunities, find a problem, and try to solve it. If your idea can do that, it could be a huge opportunity for you. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think you raise a really interesting point, and the fact that quite often you can get an opportunity, or if you study a country or a nation or a region, and you look at the different opportunities they're seizing, and you can translate them into a different sort of context. Maybe that's geographical or across industries and so forth, as I mentioned previously. And it sounds to me like that's what you saw in your experience, Rodney. And it's a great thing to, a great point to raise there. So where are the other opportunities? Like, how about in business processes, like Amazon selling or drop shipping? Are they still big opportunities doing drop shipping, or do you plug in Alibaba and push on a whole lot of other opportunities, Colin?
Well, of course, Jeff and I are involved in a number of e-commerce companies, paw.com, Meowingtons. I'm involved in a third one called Hip Optical, which is an edgier version of Warby Parker. To be quite frank, there is never been a better time in history to launch an e-commerce company. And Shopify has made it so easy. It costs virtually nothing. And I don't work for Shopify or anything like that. But it's cost virtually nothing to launch it if you have an idea. Look, launch it on Etsy. Take your product, put it on Etsy. Take your product and put it on Amazon. Take your product and put it on your own website. We've never had an easier time in history to launch a company. You got Shopify, you can outsource your support, you can have virtual assistants in Philippines, you can have developers if you need to out of the not of the Ukraine right now, but out of India and other jurisdictions. Like this is the reality is it's never been a better time to take advantage of opportunities.
And I agree with you. And I think one of the interesting things is that as soon as you go to Shopify, shop your international. And I don't get any kickback from Shopify at all either. I think there's some really interesting things around that whole model. A challenge quite often is getting the right traffic so people then purchase your goods or services and things like that. So other ones, opportunities. I just made a quick list. How about freelancing your skills, or print on demand, or affiliate marketing, or app creation, online courses, or how about your personal CFO? One of the things that myself I struggle with is that, like, paying all your bills and everything like that, someone's just got to solve that problem. That's got to be solved so that I can just pay one person, get a statement, and my water rates, my council rates, my electricity, all my utilities, all those sort of crap in my life is taken care of, down to the guy who mows my grass. Yeah. I just want to have that solved. So I want to have my personal
It's all about
CFO as
problems, right, Michael? It's all about problems, solving
oh,
problems,
it's
save time,
solving
save
problems.
money. That's it. That's what you. And there's the opportunity.
It's yeah, I agree with you. It's solving problems for people, and I just find I would pay to have my life more simple, so I don't have to think about things, individual items. And so I'm a marketplace for different sort of goods and services. Yeah, I do the market research of one. I start with me, and I think there's just so many things out there, like influencer marketing. Like people say, oh, that person's got like 1 million followers. I don't care about the person's got 1 million followers. I care about the 50 people who've got like 20,000 followers each. And how do you consolidate them? Do you now have 1 million followers? Yeah, and then how do you monetize that? Or virtual assistants, or ebook writers, or dog walking. Is there a way of scaling dog walking, or housekeeping, or tutoring? And like there's just it just goes on and on and on, and different ideas and things like that. It comes to the mix. Like I came up with an idea. I was just sitting down with my notebook, and I thought, you know what? Search needs to be revolutionized. And people said, I mentioned that to a few people. They said, what do you mean? You're going to go up against Google? Yeah, why not? Yeah. And I think you touched on something, Colin, a few minutes ago, was the fact that there's never been a better time in the history of humanity for entrepreneurs. To be able to take ideas, test them out quickly, and to find out whether they hold merit or not. And it's an incredible time we live in. And I just want to encourage all entrepreneurs out there. There's a huge number of opportunities, But the challenge is how to personally assess which one you should pursue, which comes back to what Jeff said before, is that what are your goals? You've been listening to The Complete Entrepreneur, and we've been talking about this great topic of where are the opportunities? And I think in many respects, they come from inside of each and every one of us, those opportunities. And they may come from in the middle of the night, or they may come from staring at a sunset, or they may come from times when the chaos of everyday living. Whatever it is, we're surrounded by opportunities. And the issue is, how can we actually go along and seize those opportunities? But it's been a great conversation. It really has. And I've enjoyed it, you guys. So, Colin, what's going on with Startup
I
Club?
was going to say, Michael, I think the best way to seize those opportunities is to learn how to execute on them. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, we have Bhavin Turkai, who has launched multiple unicorns, him and his brother. I think 3 unicorns. This is an incredible story. He's coming on to talk to us tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be an incredible show. Join us tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing it. And we're going to learn, what does it take? What do these serial entrepreneurs do? What does a serial unicorn entrepreneur do to do it over and over again? And that's what's happening tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern on the Startup Club.
Yeah, that sounds great to be able to hear from someone like that and get them on the show. That's going to be packed out, I'm sure. But anyway, next week on The Complete Entrepreneur, we're looking at the secret to a happy entrepreneurial life. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Being an entrepreneur is one of the most stressful jobs anyone can decide to pursue. How can you achieve success in both your personal and business life so you can lead a happy life? And that's where we're going to begin to unpack and pull apart. And what does it mean to to genuinely be happy as an entrepreneur? Or are entrepreneurs perpetually unhappy because they're never satisfied? This is going to be a great topic. I'd love to see you here at 5 p.m. Eastern Time next week. I just want to say thank you very much to my fellow moderators, Colin, Jeff, and Michelle for today, and for Rich, Patricia, Swizz, and Rodney for your wonderful input. Really loved hearing from you. And for all of you in the audience right there, it's been great having you here and participating in the conversation just by being there. If you see one of the people on the stage, you think, you know what, I want to hear more from this person, then please just click on their image and follow them. Because you know what? You may be amazed at what you discover along that journey, and it could be a business opportunity for
I
you, even with them.
I already followed Rich, Swizz, and Rodney. And by the way, Patricia, I'm your 4th follower. So welcome to Clubhouse.
Thank you.
I'm doing exactly the same thing, Colin. So it's been really good having everyone here. I'll see you next week, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on The Complete Entrepreneur.
Thanks all. Have a good one.